The ground beneath your feet is not silent. It remembers. For thousands of years, humanity has walked across this planet believing the past was simple, primitive, and fully understood. We imagine ancient people struggling in the dark, slowly crawling toward the modern world we now inhabit. But every so often, the earth cracks open, and that comforting story collapses. Because buried beneath deserts, oceans, forests, and cities are objects that should not exist. Stone that looks melted, machines that behave like computers, cities swallowed without a trace. Knowledge that appears far too early and then vanishes. What you are about to hear is not a list of curiosities. It is a journey through discoveries that refuse to be explained. In southern Egypt, stone steps inside a perfectly preserved temple appear warped and softened, as if exposed to temperatures no ancient fire should ever reach. These are not cracks from age, not erosion from footsteps. The surface bends inward, like wax left too close to flame. Granite and limestone do not behave this way, unless subjected to extreme heat. No texts describe a disaster. No records mention fire. And yet the stone remembers something no one can explain. For a long time, historians believed ancient people observed the sky, but did not truly understand it. That belief shattered in the Mediterranean Sea in 1901, when sponge divers pulled fragments from a shipwreck. At first, it looked like corroded bronze. Then someone noticed gears. Not decorative gears, precision-cut, interlocking wheels arranged with purpose. Slowly, a machine emerged, capable of predicting eclipses, planetary motion, even long-term cycles of time itself. It was over 2,000 years old, and nothing like it would exist again for more than a millennium. History says progress moves forward. Archaeology says it sometimes disappears. In the Valley of the Kings, a sealed staircase lay hidden beneath sand for more than 3,000 years. At its end rested a tomb untouched by looters, tice, or decay. Inside were thousands of artifacts: gold, furniture, weapons, clothing, preserved as if sealed intentionally. The tomb was small, almost rushed, as if the burial was never meant to be permanent. Even today, questions linger. Why was this tomb spared when all others were violated? Why does the death of a young king still raise more questions than answers? Far from Egypt, in the caves near the Dead Sea, shattered pottery revealed something just as unsettling. Ancient manuscripts, hidden deliberately, protected from time. When scholars read them, they discovered texts nearly identical to religious writings used today, despite being copied thousands of years earlier. Across centuries of war, exile, and collapse, the words survived almost unchanged. Someone had gone to great lengths to preserve them. The question is not how they survived. It is why they were hidden in the first place. Long before cities, writing, or agriculture, humans were already artists. A small mammoth carved from ivory, etched with symbolic lines, lay buried for 35,000 years. It was not crude. It was intentional, balanced, expressive. It proved that imagination, spirituality, and abstraction existed at the dawn of our species. If humans were already capable of symbolic thought that early, how much of our story is missing? Rome offers another uncomfortable lesson. Its buildings still stand after 2,000 years, while modern concrete crumbles within decades. Scientists eventually discovered the secret: a chemical reaction that allows the material to heal itself over time. The formula was never written down. When Rome fell, the knowledge vanished. For over 1,000 years, humanity built weaker structures, unaware the solution already existed in the past. Near Luxor, two massive statues once sang at dawn. After an earthquake, as the morning sun warmed fractured stone, a sound echoed across the desert, half whistle, half groan. Travelers crossed empires to hear it. When the statues were repaired centuries later, the sound stopped forever. To the ancients, it was divine. To modern science, a mystery of physics and chance. Either way, the stones spoke, and then fell silent. In deserts between modern nations, perfectly aligned military camps remain visible from the sky. They follow Roman engineering principles with mathematical precision, and yet no text ever recorded their existence. No campaigns, no battles, no explanations. History did not forget them. History never knew them. In the ruins of a Roman city frozen by volcanic ash, two men died not from fire, but from collapse. One raised his arm in a final instinctive gesture. Nearby lay coins and jewelry, evidence of panic, not ritual. The eruption that ended their world lasted less than 20 minutes. Those minutes preserved their lives, their fear, and their final choices for eternity. In Northern Europe, human footprints nearly 300,000 years old were found pressed into ancient mud. An adult, a teenager, a child, walking together along a lake shore, surrounded by tracks of extinct animals. It may have been a family, a moment of teaching, a normal day, nothing heroic, nothing recorded, and yet it survived while entire empires vanished. In a frozen cave in Siberia, a simple pendant revealed something no one expected. Scientists extracted human DNA not from bones, but from the object itself, genetic material left behind by touch. For the first time, archaeology could identify a person through what they wore, not how they died. Objects, it turns out, remember us. Beneath the sea near Europe's shores, stone roads vanish into the water. They were once land routes, connecting communities erased by rising oceans. No legends remain, no names. Just stone leading nowhere. Entire worlds drowned quietly, without war or warning. Across the globe, skulls appear elongated beyond normal human variation. Some match known cultural practices, others do not. Sutures are missing. Bone density is wrong. DNA confirms they are human, but different. Not another species, just unfamiliar. A burial covered in thousands of gold ornaments was long assumed to belong to a male warrior. New evidence suggests the individual may have been female. If true, it challenges assumptions about power, gender, and leadership in ancient societies. History did not lie. We simply misread it. Ancient people tracked the sky with terrifying accuracy. They predicted eclipses, measured seasons, and aligned monuments with celestial events using nothing but observation, memory, and ritual. Knowledge was not written. It was performed, passed down through ceremony, architecture, and myth. When those traditions died, the knowledge died with them. In modern times, deep-sea explorers encounter objects they cannot identify. Smooth, perfect, silent. Even now, mystery has not ended. It has only changed its shape. Civilizations rise believing they will be remembered. Most are wrong. Cities sink, knowledge vanishes. Symbols outlive empires. Stone survives where words do not. Archaeology does not comfort us. It humbles us. Because the past is not primitive. It is incomplete. And the most unsettling truth of all is this: the ground beneath your feet is still watching. Some discoveries do not disturb us because they are strange. but because they quietly expose how much we misunderstand the human past. In the middle of the desert near the Dead Sea, ancient manuscripts lay hidden in caves for more than 2,000 years. They were not lost. They were protected. When they were finally uncovered, scholars realized the texts were almost identical to religious writings still read today. Centuries of war, exile, and collapse had passed, yet the words remained intact. This was not chance. Someone believed these texts mattered enough to hide from time itself, waiting for a future that might understand them. Long before cities or writing existed, humans were already thinking symbolically. A small mammoth carved from ivory, buried for tens of thousands of years, revealed careful craftsmanship and intention. Its lines were not random. Its form was balanced and expressive. This object did not help someone hunt or survive. It existed because someone wanted to create meaning. If humans were capable of art and abstraction so early, then much of our intellectual history may be missing entirely. Across the ruins of the Roman world, stone structures still stand where modern materials fail. Harbors battered by waves for 2,000 years remain intact, while concrete poured in the last century cracks and collapses. Scientists eventually discovered why. Roman concrete healed itself. When fractures formed, chemical reactions strengthened the structure instead of weakening it. The knowledge was never written down. When Rome fell, the formula vanished. For more than a millennium, humanity built inferior structures, unaware that the solution already belonged to the past. In Egypt, two colossal statues once greeted the sunrise with sound. After an earthquake fractured one of them, a strange phenomenon began. As the morning sun warmed the stone, a haunting tone echoed across the plain. Travelers crossed continents to hear it. Emperors came. Poets wrote about it. Centuries later, when the statue was repaired, the sound stopped forever. Whether physics or coincidence, the stone spoke once and then fell silent, leaving behind a mystery no one could fully explain. Far from Rome, in remote deserts, perfectly aligned military camps remain etched into the landscape. Their shape, spacing, and design match Roman engineering exactly. Each camp sits one day's march from the next, and yet no ancient historian ever recorded them. No campaigns mention them. No battles explain them. The camps exist, but the story does not. History did not forget them. It never knew them. In a city buried by volcanic ash, two men died beneath a collapsing wall. One raised his arm in a final, instinctive attempt to protect himself. Coins and jewelry lay scattered nearby, signs of panic rather than ritual. They did not die slowly. They did not die ceremonially. They died suddenly, as the world ended around them. 17 minutes was all it took to freeze their final moment for eternity. In northern Europe, ancient footprints pressed into mud tell a quieter story. An adult, a teenager, and a child walked together along a lake shore nearly 300,000 years ago. Around them were the tracks of animals that no longer exist. It may have been a family, a lesson, a moment of play. Nothing remarkable except that it survived, while entire civilizations disappeared without trace. In a frozen cave, a small pendant changed archaeology forever. Scientists extracted human DNA not from bones, but from the object itself. Genetic traces left behind by touch. For the first time, a person could be identified not by how they died, but by what they wore. Objects, it turns out, remember the people who use them. Beneath shallow seas, stone roads vanish into water. Once they connected communities, now erased by rising oceans. No myths recall them. No names survive. Only carefully placed slabs leading into silence. Entire worlds drowned without war, without warning, without memory. Across continents, elongated skulls appear in ancient burials. Some can be explained by cultural practices. Others cannot. Bone structure differs. Sutures are missing. Cranial capacity is unusual. DNA confirms they are human, yet unfamiliar. Not another species. Just another variation history never bothered to explain. A burial covered in thousands of gold ornaments was long assumed to belong to a male warrior. Later analysis suggested otherwise. The individual may have been female, a leader or priestess. Power, it seems, did not always follow the rules we expect. History did not deceive us. We simply assumed. Ancient people watched the sky with precision that still unsettles modern scientists. They tracked cycles spanning decades. They predicted eclipses. They aligned stone, ritual, and architecture with the movement of the heavens. This knowledge was not written down. It was remembered through ceremony and repetition. When those traditions ended, the knowledge vanished with them. Even now, mystery has not left us. In the deep ocean, researchers encounter objects they cannot identify. Smooth, silent, perfect. The unknown did not end with antiquity. It only changed form. Civilizations rise believing they will be remembered. Most are not. Cities sink, knowledge disappears. Symbols outlive empires. Stone endures where words fail. History is not a straight line forward. It is a landscape of peaks and collapses. And every discovery leads back to the same unsettling truth. The past was never simple, and it is not finished speaking. History is often told through kings, wars, and monuments. But sometimes the most unsettling truths are written in bone. In the ruins of an ancient Roman city frozen beneath ash, archaeologists uncovered the remains of two men trapped under a collapsed wall. One had raised his arm in a final, instinctive attempt to shield himself. They did not die from fire or lava. They died from impact, from panic, from the sudden collapse of the world they trusted. Nearby lay coins and small personal objects, scattered in haste. The eruption that erased their city lasted only minutes. Yet those minutes preserved a moment of human fear and helplessness for 2,000 years. Elsewhere, a far quieter story emerged from an ancient cemetery. Among dozens of burials, scientists found the skeleton of a woman whose thigh bone had grown an abnormal mass after a severe injury. She would have struggled to walk, to work, to survive on her own. And yet she lived for decades after the trauma. In a time without medicine or technology, her survival speaks of something rarely emphasized in ancient history: care. Someone fed her. Someone helped her move. Someone chose not to abandon her. In Northern Europe, footprints pressed into long hardened mud tell another story. An adult, a teenager, and a child walked together along the edge of a prehistoric lake nearly 300,000 years ago. Around them were the tracks of animals now extinct. There is nothing heroic about these prints. No battle, no ritual, just people moving through their day. And yet these quiet steps survived, while entire civilizations vanished without a trace. Deep in a frozen cave, a small piece of jewelry transformed how archaeologists understand the past. A simple pendant worn thousands of years ago still carried traces of human DNA, not from bones or teeth, but from touch, from skin. For the first time, scientists could identify a person not by their remains, but by the object they once wore. The past, it turned out, was closer than anyone imagined. Across continents, ancient burials continue to challenge what we think we know about the human body. Elongated skulls appear in graves from different regions and eras. Some match known cultural practices, others do not. Bone structure differs. Sutures are missing. Cranial shapes fall outside normal variation. DNA confirms they are human, but unfamiliar. Not another species, yet not entirely explained. In Central Asia, a burial covered in thousands of gold ornaments was celebrated as the grave of a powerful male warrior. Years later, careful analysis raised a different possibility. The remains may belong to a young woman. If true, it rewrites assumptions about leadership, power, and gender in ancient societies. The mistake was not in the bones. It was in our expectations. Ancient graves often reveal more about the living than the dead. Coins placed in mouths, shoes laid beside bodies, food prepared for journeys beyond life. These rituals appear across cultures separated by oceans and millennia. Yet they mirror each other with striking similarity. Humanity, it seems, has always shared the same fears about death and the same hopes about what comes after. Taken together, these discoveries reveal a past that is not brutal or primitive, but deeply human. A past where people cared for the injured, walked with their children, honored their dead, and left traces of themselves in ways no one expected. The bones do not speak of monsters or legends. They speak of people. And perhaps that is the most unsettling realization of all. Because if ancient humans were so much like us, then the distance between past and present is far smaller than we are comfortable admitting. And the question that lingers is not who they were, but what we have forgotten about ourselves. Modern civilization is built on a comforting belief that technology moves forward in a straight line, each generation smarter and more capable than the last. Archaeology keeps shattering that belief. Near the shores of the Adriatic Sea beneath shallow water, stone slabs form a road that leads directly into the sea. It is not a natural formation. The stones are cut, placed, and aligned with intention. When it was built, the sea level was lower, and the road connected land now lost beneath the waves. It is more than 7,000 years old. No stories remember the people who walked it. No names survive. Only stone remains, pointing toward a drowned world that vanished without warning. On a Greek island, a tunnel carved straight through solid rock stretches for more than a kilometer. It was dug from both ends at the same time, meeting almost perfectly in the middle. The builders had no modern tools, no lasers, no instruments we would recognize. And yet, the precision rivals modern engineering. This was not luck. It was knowledge, applied with confidence and skill, knowledge that would disappear for centuries after. Long before modern plumbing, ancient societies understood the power of water. In palaces thousands of years old, archaeologists uncovered drainage systems, clay pipes, flushing toilets, and even methods of heating water. These were not luxuries for a few elites. They were integrated systems designed to manage health, hygiene, and daily life. When these civilizations collapsed, the technology vanished with them, leaving later generations to reinvent what had already been mastered. Along ancient coastlines, Roman harbors still resist the sea. Waves crash against them year after year, century after century, yet they endure. Modern concrete placed in similar conditions fails quickly. The secret lay in chemistry the Romans never recorded. Their concrete grew stronger over time, repairing itself when cracks formed. When their empire fell, the formula vanished, and humanity forgot how to build what it once knew. In the deserts of the Middle East, perfectly rectangular military camps remain visible from the sky. Each is placed exactly 1 day's march from the next. Their layout follows Roman standards with mathematical precision, and yet no historical record mentions them. No campaigns, no victories, no defeats. The camps exist without a story. Silent proof that written history is not a complete record of human activity. Across the world, roads, buildings, and tools appear without explanation. Infrastructure remains where memory does not. These were not accidental creations. They required planning, labor, and shared knowledge. Their disappearance was not always violent. Sometimes it was quiet, a slow retreat, a loss of belief in the future. When civilizations vanish, patterns repeat. Climate shifts, trade routes collapse, political systems fracture, people leave. Nature reclaims what was built. Sand fills halls, water floods streets, roots crack stone. Within a few generations, memory fades, and the land appears empty again. Modern society likes to believe it is different. Too advanced, too connected, too documented to disappear without trace. Archaeology tells a harsher truth. Every civilization believes it will be remembered. Most are wrong. Stone roads beneath the sea, tunnels through mountains, self-healing concrete, lost plumbing systems. These are not isolated wonders. Together, they form a warning. Knowledge is fragile. Progress is not guaranteed. What is built can be forgotten. The most unsettling question is not how ancient people achieved these feats. It is how easily they were lost. Because if entire worlds could vanish once, carrying their technology with them, then the distance between past collapse and future collapse may be far smaller than we imagine. The stones beneath our feet are not monuments to success. They are reminders. Technology can vanish, cities can sink, but belief is far harder to erase. Across centuries, faith leaves marks not only in words, but in stone, ritual, and objects that quietly challenge everything we think we know about the past. For generations, one name existed only in religious texts, dismissed by skeptics as legend. Then a single block of limestone emerged from the ruins of an ancient theater. Its inscription was damaged, incomplete, but unmistakable. It named a Roman official whose authority once decided life and death. In that moment, belief and history intersected. Stone did not prove faith, but it proved presence. It reminded scholars that absence of evidence is often nothing more than absence of discovery. In a city buried by volcanic ash, archaeologists uncovered a temple that did not belong there. Within a Roman settlement stood a sanctuary dedicated to an Egyptian goddess. Her worship had crossed seas and empires, carried not by conquest, but by devotion. Inside the ruins, remains of ritual meals told a story of offerings made in hope of divine favor. Faith in the ancient world was not confined by borders. Gods traveled freely, long before nations ever did. Beneath the coronation chair of kings lies a simple block of red stone. For centuries, rulers have been crowned above it, their authority bound to its presence. Recent examinations revealed markings and traces of materials that hint at a deeper, undocumented history. No records explain why this stone holds such power. Yet ritual has preserved its importance long after the world that created it vanished. Symbols, once sanctified, outlive empires. In remote regions, archaeologists uncovered ceremonial tables carved with precision and surrounded by ash, bones, and sealed vessels. These were not places of everyday life. They were stages for carefully controlled rituals. Tokens marked distribution, structures were deliberately sealed. Faith here was not spontaneous. It was organized, managed, and deeply intertwined with social order. Across cultures separated by oceans and millennia, the same gestures appear again and again. Coins placed in mouths for the journey after death. Shoes laid beside bodies. Food prepared for the unknown beyond life. These rituals were not borrowed from one another. They emerged independently, driven by the same human fear and the same human hope. Belief became a way to bring order to chaos, meaning to loss, and comfort to uncertainty. Religion in the ancient world was never just spiritual. It was political. It shaped authority, justified power, and united communities under shared symbols. Once belief was carved into stone and enacted through ritual, it gained weight. It became history. And that is why religious artifacts are among the most difficult to interpret. They are not just objects. They are emotions made solid. Fear, hope, devotion, and control, preserved in material form. When archaeology confirms some beliefs and contradicts others, it forces an uncomfortable question. How much of what we call faith was revelation, and how much was design? How much was divine experience, and how much was human structure imposed on an unpredictable world? The past does not answer these questions directly. It leaves them etched in stone, scattered in ash, and sealed beneath ritual. Belief does not disappear. It adapts. It waits. And long after its worshippers are gone, it continues to shape the world they left behind. Not every civilization ends in fire and conquest. Some simply fade, leaving behind no farewell, no final record, only silence. Off the coast of Egypt, beneath the waters near what was once a thriving center of trade, stone columns and statues lie scattered across the seabed. Temples rest on their sides. Streets vanish into sand. This was once a living city, filled with ships, merchants, and rituals. It did not collapse overnight. Earthquakes weakened the ground. The sea rose slowly. Trade routes shifted. People left. And the water completed what time had begun. A city disappeared, not through destruction, but through abandonment. Elsewhere, history was lost in quieter ways. Beneath a modern field in northern Europe, archaeologists uncovered the remains of massive Roman baths. These were places of daily life, laughter, conversation, and routine. Inside their ancient drainage channels, small objects lay hidden for centuries, semi-precious stones once set into rings. Heated water had loosened the glue that held them in place. They slipped away unnoticed, lost during ordinary moments. The past was not always buried by catastrophe. Sometimes it simply fell through the cracks. In a desert valley far from the sea, a narrow strip of land stretches across the landscape, riddled with thousands of evenly spaced pits. From the ground, it looks random. From above, it reveals order, pattern, intention. No one knows why it was built. Graves, storage, measurement, ritual. Every explanation falls short. The people who created it left no story behind, only a structure too deliberate to be accidental and too silent to be understood. Across the world, archaeologists encounter the same unsettling pattern. Roads with no names, buildings without memory, tools whose purpose can only be guessed. These were not primitive societies. They planned, organized, and built with intention. Their disappearance was not always violent. Sometimes it was gradual, driven by environmental change, political fracture, or the slow loss of meaning. When belief in the future collapses, people leave. When people leave, memory fades. Nature reclaims what was built. Sand fills rooms, water swallows streets, roots split stone. Within a few generations, even great cities appear as though they never existed. Modern civilization believes it is different, too advanced, too connected, too recorded to vanish quietly. The past suggests otherwise. Every society believes it will be remembered. Most are not. The ruins beneath the sea and beneath our cities are not warnings written in words. They are warnings written in absence. Civilization is fragile. Memory is selective. History remembers only what survives. And beneath our feet, entire worlds remain hidden, waiting not to be rediscovered, but to remind us how easily everything can disappear. Archaeology has rules. Layers must align. Objects must belong to their time. Evidence is expected to fit neatly into established frameworks. And yet, every so often, something emerges that refuses to obey those rules. Across different continents and eras, skulls appear with proportions that challenge what we understand about the human body. Many can be explained by cultural practices, by deliberate shaping in infancy. Others cannot. Bone density differs. Sutures are missing. Cranial volumes fall outside known ranges. DNA confirms they are human, but unfamiliar. Not another species, just a variation history never fully explained. In Central Asia, a burial covered in thousands of gold ornaments stunned archaeologists. The individual was declared a powerful male warrior, a symbol of strength and authority. Years later, closer examination raised a different possibility. The remains may belong to a young woman. If true, it disrupts deeply held assumptions about leadership, power, and gender in ancient societies. The error was not in the discovery, but in the expectation. Some objects challenge not biology, but time itself. Reports surface of artifacts that appear far older than anything resembling their form should be. A book-shaped object turned to stone, its pages mineralized, its structure unmistakable. Scientists debate natural processes. Skeptics dismiss misidentification. Yet the resemblance remains unsettling. It exists in a space where explanation becomes uncomfortable. Old accounts speak of skeletons far taller than average, unearthed and then quietly removed. Many reports were exaggerated or false. Some were not. Bones were measured, photographs taken, and then the evidence disappeared into storage, archives, or private collections. These finds are rarely discussed, not because they are proven wrong, but because they complicate established narratives. Certain discoveries are not controversial because they lack evidence. They are controversial because they do not fit. They force scholars to choose between expanding the framework or rejecting the anomaly. Rewriting history is costly, not in money, but in certainty. When evidence threatens stability, silence becomes a response. Objects are labeled anomalous. Finds are described as unverified. Displays are altered. Discussions fade, not out of malice, but out of discomfort. It is easier to ignore what demands too much change. Taken together, these discoveries form a pattern. Unfamiliar skulls, burials that defy assumption, objects that appear out of place in time. Evidence that vanishes after discovery. None of them alone overturn history. Together, they expose its fragility. The past is not wrong. It is incomplete. And perhaps the most unsettling truth is not that strange things exist in history, but that we decide which ones are allowed to matter. Genius does not always announce itself with clarity or purpose. Sometimes it appears quietly, misunderstood in its own time, or dismissed as curiosity rather than progress. In the 17th century, a young man watched his father struggle with endless calculations. Numbers were slow, tedious, and vulnerable to error. At an age when most were still learning, he imagined a machine that could think mechanically. Gears turned, dials advanced. Carries happened without human hands. The device could only add, yet even that was revolutionary. For the first time, calculation itself had been automated. The idea arrived centuries before the world knew what to do with it. Elsewhere, craftsmanship reached heights that would later be forgotten. In an ancient burial, a pair of iron scissors lay untouched for more than 2,000 years. When uncovered, they were still sharp, still balanced, still usable. The metal had been forged with such precision that modern experts struggled to explain its durability. The hands that made them are long gone. The technique they used vanished with them. Luxury once came in miniature form. Tiny embroidered books, small enough to hide in a pocket, carried calendars, poems, and private messages. They were not meant for display, but for intimacy. Each stitch represented patience, skill, and taste. These objects remind us that refinement does not always seek attention. Sometimes it is meant to be held quietly, known only to those close enough to see it. Then there are talents so strange they border on the unbelievable. A performer in 19th century Europe possessed complete control over his body in a way no one had ever documented. He produced sound, music, even melody from air alone. Audiences laughed, scientists observed, and royalty attended his performances. He was studied, admired, and ultimately dismissed as entertainment. His ability was real, measurable, and unique. Yet it led nowhere. Genius without application fades quickly. In the courts of Renaissance Europe, weapons became demonstrations of intellect as much as tools of war. A single instrument combined hammer, blade, spike, and hidden mechanisms activated by rotation. It was complex beyond necessity. It existed not to fight, but to prove mastery. A statement forged in metal that said, "This can be done." These stories seem unrelated, scattered across time and culture, but they share a common thread. Each reveals a moment when human capability exceeded expectation. Each shows how easily such moments can be lost. Progress is not guaranteed. It depends on memory, transmission, and belief in the future. When those collapse, knowledge disappears, even if it once worked perfectly. The past is not filled only with failures and limitations. It is filled with brilliance that arrived too early, too quietly, or in forms no one knew how to preserve. And that may be the most dangerous illusion of all, that genius is rare. It is not. What is rare is remembering it. Some moments in history feel almost deliberate, as if human potential briefly revealed itself in full before retreating again into obscurity. In the 17th century, a teenager looked at numbers not as symbols to be written, but as movements that could be controlled. He built a machine of gears and dials that could perform calculations automatically. It was expensive, fragile, and far ahead of its time. Few people understood it. Fewer still could afford it. And yet the idea was undeniable. Thought itself could be mechanized. Long before electricity, before computers, before algorithms, the concept already existed. When the inventor moved on, the world let the idea sleep for centuries. Elsewhere, skill was preserved not in theory, but in practice. Iron tools forged more than 2,000 years ago emerged from the ground in near-perfect condition. Their balance, sharpness, and durability rivaled modern craftsmanship. The knowledge behind them was never written down. It was passed from hand to hand, generation to generation, until one generation failed to pass it on. When that happened, the technique vanished completely. In 18th century Europe, refinement took the form of intimacy. Tiny books, embroidered with care, were designed to be carried unseen. They held calendars, notes, and private thoughts. These were not objects meant to last forever. They were meant to accompany a person through daily life. That they survived at all feels accidental, as though history hesitated before erasing them. Human capability does not always express itself in ways society knows how to value. In the 19th century, a man discovered he possessed an extraordinary physical ability. He could control his body with such precision that he could produce sound, melody, and rhythm in ways no one else could. Audiences laughed. Scientists observed. His talent was real, measurable, and unique. But it led nowhere. It was classified as novelty rather than potential, and when he left the stage, the phenomenon disappeared with him. In Renaissance courts, intellect was sometimes expressed through excess. Weapons were crafted not for efficiency, but for complexity. A single object might combine multiple functions activated by hidden mechanisms. These creations were not meant for battle. They were meant to demonstrate mastery, proof that a mind could imagine what others would never attempt. Each of these stories points to the same uncomfortable truth. Genius is not always recognized. It is not always preserved. And it does not always lead forward. History often remembers outcomes, not attempts. It records what succeeded, not what appeared too early, too strange, or too impractical to survive. When knowledge is not needed immediately, it is ignored. When it is ignored long enough, it disappears. The past is not only a record of what humanity achieved, it is a record of what humanity almost became. It is tempting to believe that the age of mystery belongs entirely to the past, that modern science has illuminated every shadow and closed every unanswered chapter. Yet the present continues to uncover questions it cannot resolve. Deep beneath the surface of the ocean, researchers encountered a smooth, golden object resting in complete stillness. It had no markings, no movement, only a small opening that suggested something had once been inside. Marine biologists debated its nature, unable to agree whether it was biological or something entirely unknown. Even with modern instruments and laboratories, certainty remained out of reach. Mystery, it seems, did not end with antiquity. In Egypt, excavations near an ancient coastal city revealed something no one expected. Instead of a tomb, a tunnel emerged, carved with extraordinary precision beneath layers of rock. It stretched for more than a kilometer, its design echoing feats of engineering thought to belong elsewhere and much earlier. Coins bearing the image of a powerful queen lay nearby, along with statues of a goddess she revered. Yet the burial itself remains hidden. Perhaps it lies beyond reach. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. History does not always reward effort with answers. Power, once bound to ritual, can outlast the civilizations that created it. A simple block of stone continues to anchor coronations centuries after its origins were forgotten. Recent examinations revealed markings and traces of materials that hint at a story never recorded. The stone's authority does not come from explanation. It comes from belief, repeated until it becomes tradition. Across deserts, seas, and ruins, modern archaeology keeps encountering the same pattern. Technologies appear and disappear, cities rise and sink, knowledge flourishes, then vanishes. Objects endure while understanding fades. The past does not unfold as a steady march toward improvement, but as a series of peaks followed by collapse. Modern society often assumes it stands apart from this cycle. too advanced to forget, too documented to disappear, too connected to fall silently. The evidence suggests otherwise. Digital records decay, infrastructure fails, environments shift. What seems permanent rarely is. If future archaeologists were to study our world, they would find traces of astonishing capability alongside evidence of sudden fragility. They would ask why certain knowledge was preserved and other knowledge allowed to vanish. They would wonder what we believed, what we feared, and what we assumed would last forever. The past does not seek to impress us. It leaves behind reminders. Every artifact is a fragment of a conversation interrupted. Every ruin is a sentence left unfinished. Every unanswered question is an invitation to listen more carefully. History is not complete. It is ongoing. And the most unsettling realization of all is this: the ground beneath our feet is still watching, still waiting, and still capable of surprising us when we least expect it.